He's got the sun.
Hello, everyone. This is W, host of this podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. Let us begin with a quick little anecdotal story. Whilst teaching, I used to play quite a bit of music in the morning or afternoon for my students. Often, I'd put on music that my fifth graders were not accustomed to hearing. One year, I decided to play a song, Shine Like a New Pin, during warm-ups. After multiple listens, my students fell in love with the tune and often smiled whenever we heard it in the classroom. That song by Camera Obscura smothers you with indie charm. Here to talk about the reissue, Biggest Bluest Hi-Fi, and more is Gavin Dunbar, bassist for the band. Hello, how are you?
Good. How you doing, W?
Doing fine. Before we get started, tell the listeners what you've been up to lately.
Well, we've just been working away. I was away for a week's holiday last week in Ochterarder, just up in the kind of central bit of Scotland between Stirling and Perth. That was lovely. Back to work this week. We've been rehearsing for the upcoming Camera Obscura tour, which is at the end of May, start of June, over in that North America. So that's been taking up a bit of time, but it's all good.
What does traveling do for you? How does it recharge your batteries?
Oh, it's exciting. It's nice. It's nice to get to meet people. I mean, we're really lucky because most bands don't get to tour, North America or, Europe or even around the UK without it costing them a lot of money and mental health and stress. And we get to do that. And it's great getting to play concerts for people who care about the music you've made and care about the band is a huge thing. So that's always a real pleasure. You do have to put up with a lot of hanging about. You have to put up with a lot of waiting for things to happen. You have to put up with being away from home for like weeks at a time, which can be really stressful. You miss your family. Your job hates you because you've disappeared for 4 weeks. But it's amazing to get to play concerts. It's a total privilege, especially after all this time.
Mickey Bereni, former front woman of the band Lush, told me how expensive it has gotten for people in the UK to travel abroad, particularly US, just to do a 2-week, 4-week tour.
Yeah, I think the cost of all the preparation has rocketed now. And like for a lot, I mean, we discovered last time we came over, the system is in place for us to get work visas. It's quite expensive, and it's worthwhile. But it's got to the point now that there are so many people applying and it takes so long to come through that you have to basically fast track it. So you have to pay extra money to fast track your visa so that it comes through in time for you to get on the tour, which is quite a challenge, And obviously, I mean, even just the cost of flights and hotels and, or whether, regardless of whether you're in a minibus or you're in a tour bus, it's still, everything costs a lot more than it used to. So it's a wee bit eye-watering. But I mean, at least for us, we were lucky to get to play to full crowds, and we're lucky to have merch, and we can sell that, and that contributes to being able to us to afford it, So, but it's not cheap. It is an eye-watering amount of money.
I've often wondered, how does a band defray some of the costs in terms of concerts and performing? Where do they try to trim off some of that fat when it comes to their budget?
I mean, it's difficult. Different bands have different levels of what makes it acceptable to be away from home. So for us, the last time we toured properly, we were lucky enough to have a tour bus in the US and Canada. And then when we came back, we made the decision to use a tour bus in Europe, even although it cost us money and we lost money on that tour. But we figured the discomfort, I mean, there were some really long drives as well, but the discomfort of being stuck in a minibus for like 2 weeks, having to do drives that are, like if you can't do them overnight, you're doing them during the day before the show, and that's just not always feasible. So for us, the decision was made to spend money, lose money, have a tour bus, but have us all not be fried doing it. And I think, obviously, there are times when people will choose to take a minibus, drive themselves, not spend money on a tour bus. And having to pay for hotels balances out some of the cost. But it's down to come in it to a degree. It's down to comfort and what makes it acceptable. If you're taking, 2 to 4 weeks or whatever off your work and leaving your family for a month, you don't want to be coming home absolutely bust because you've spent 4 weeks not sleeping because you've been driving, getting off a show and then driving straight off to the next town the next morning. That would just be unfeasible, really. So for us to make it work, we luckily, like in the UK and in North America, like we didn't lose money, so it balanced out. And that the European leg was worth it for us.
And how do you guys deal with not getting sick of each other, not getting on each other's nerves whilst touring?
We are very good friends. We have been together as a band for like 30 years in one way, shape or form this year, which is a long time. We know how not to wind each other up, and we know how to look after each other when we're away. So that's what we do.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for giving us some perspective on touring. And yeah, I hear this all the time from musicians, particularly again, coming from the UK to America, how difficult it is. Yeah.
I think it used to be so much, like, one, it was cheaper, but also because of the exchange rate for us, we could come over to the States and like come back with guitars that cost like half the amount they would here, and everybody was like, yeah. And you put up with so much else, come back with like a suitcase full of Levi's and stuff, but it's a bit of a culture shock these days, just with the change in how much it costs.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get really in depth with this conversation. I want to ask you this question, Gavin. Tell us a moment in your life where any form of art completely shifted your perspective.
I think for me, it probably happened when I properly discovered New Order, who became my favourite band. I kind of heard them. I must have heard them on the radio or whatever, maybe beforehand. But 1987, when I heard True Faith, it's the first time I actually took it in as being like, what's this? And someone in my class had gone out and bought Substance and had led me the cassette of Substance, and I was listening to this stuff. And like, to be fair, Substance is quite hard going in places. Like the B-side cassette was like, what's all this stuff? It's look at this drum machines that sound like a machine gun, and I don't get, this is a bit discordant and vulgar. I don't really get it. There's someone spitting on this track. Why are they doing this? But I just, there's something about it really caught my attention, and from the moment I kind of it was like opening a book and just finding this whole new world. And the fact that they were on Factory Records, and the fact that they had been Joy Division, and the fact that they went on to do like other projects outside of New Order, but they all sounded great. They were all fantastic. But it was this whole world of, and they had an aesthetic. Peter Savile's design, and you've got Tony Wilson's a total character. It's running the record label, not very well as a business, but very well as an art statement. You've got Rob Gretton managing them in a really kind of curmudgeonly but very interesting way, pushing them in directions they didn't necessarily want to go. But the whole thing is a real, it's just an example of how to make great art but not make any money doing it, And it just seemed really interesting. It was shining a light on how to make music that is esoteric and aesthetically interesting and pushing boundaries. And it's seminal. When the music they made, obviously with Joy Division and then New Order, they changed how popular music sounded, like twice, which is really unusual for any band to do it once. But you've kind of got Joy Division, thanks to Martin Hannett, completely stamping what post-punk sounds like, which then influences like generations of indie alternative bands. And then New Order, kind of bringing about this, I know it's a bit of a terrible description, but kind of dance rock crossover or dance pop crossover sound. To going from sounding like Joy Division to sounding like, World in Motion is just quite a huge stretch,
Yes.
But, and they did it with style, they did it with panache, and they did it like nobody else did, and it just showed well, it showed me what you could do as a musician or as someone in a band. There was this, there was a total way to do it that wasn't being pandering to major record labels, who I've never particularly found very interesting or trustworthy. But I guess your factories and Mutes and Rough Trade and have long shown this way for bands to make really interesting, challenging music that can still sell records.
For me and for so many other people, when Blue Monday started to take over the airwaves here in the Bay Area, it revolutionized, it changed the way we listen to music, the way we dance to music, all of it. So tell us a song or two that really catapulted it for you, that really inspire you. I know there are many.
Age of Consent, that opening for Power Corruption Lies, which is a totally amazing. I mean, it's the album that they found their voice, because I guess like Movement is a hangover from Joy Division. It's thoroughly miserable because they've just gone through bereavement and they're trying to find a new voice and they'll find their feet, and they're kind of being pushed to make a record quite quickly, and the producer's in a cupboard and not talking to anybody because he's on drugs and can't cope with his bereavement. And you get to Power Corruption Lies and they have suddenly found their feet, they found their voice, and that the opening, like Hookie's bass starting that record is just it's just like sunshine bursting down on top of you. So, yeah, I think Power Corruption Lies, what a record, Age of Consent as the opener. I mean, that's one of my favourite New Order songs. I mean, it should have been a single. It's just pop genius. Love Vigilantes. That's another absolute cracker. It's not complicated. It's just really simple. It's like it's just a band playing. You've got your drums, your bass, your guitar, keys, and the vocals. It's not overdub heavy. But it's short, sharp pop perfection with fairly dark lyrics to make it a bit more interesting.
As a bassist that you are, and a skilled one, how do you view Hookie's play, and what makes him so stand out?
I mean, he plays lead guitar on a bass. I mean, to be fair, I mean, there's no two ways about it. He also plays bass guitar on a bass, but when he's playing the lead lines, he's playing lead bass, and he's not doing what traditional bass players would do. I mean, I taught myself to play bass listening to his bass lines. I love what he does. I can't play like that in most of the bands I'm in because it's not apt, and you just sound like you're ripping off like Hookie. He does such melodic touches, everything. The melodies he comes up with are beautiful. I mean, that would be the envy of most lead guitar players. And he's seminal. He made a sound. I mean, I know Simon Gallup sounds quite like him in The Cure, but he made a sound that was unique at the time and has been copied, by lots of people since. Usually not as well as he can do it, but it's great. And it is the cherry on top of what New Order do that makes them sound different to everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's just it's an interesting, unique and seminal take.
When I saw them last year in Pasadena for this big festival, they closed it with Temptation.
I should have chosen Temptation. 3 chords, but it's incredible.
I mean, it really is one of the greatest songs of all time.
7 minutes, 3 chords. What can you do?
What can you do? You just bow down and you surrender.
Nothing changed, the same all the way through. It's great. It's amazing. And it's incredible. It's what a tune.
Okay, I'm going to throw over a compliment here, okay? Yes, New Order, Camera Obscura music, quite different. But, and I say this with great authenticity, and this is one of the reasons why I've always loved your band. What you two do in terms of band and the quality of work that you put out, you make it sound so effortless, and I know that's not the case.
Yeah. Thank you. I mean, that's a really nice compliment to have. I mean, we do try. I guess we have. It took us a long time to start. We spent nearly 4 years just kind of like trying to find people to work with that were right. When we got there, we very quickly, I mean, we all have different tastes in music. They all overlap. We all love the same people, but we also like totally different stuff.
Yeah.
But when we play together, I think as people, we're all quite similar in different ways, but we're all quite similar as people. And as musicians, we get what the other people bring to what we do. So I think we're quite good at knowing when to let other parts of the band take off or come down and you step in. And we seem to have always been quite good at knowing how to work well together, which is nice. It's not easy. Not every band can do it. And it's nice to be able to hopefully do well.
So I think this lends perfectly to this quote I want to read to you by Alex from Franz Ferdinand. And he says this: music should make you feel something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I would say with Camera Obscura music, since the beginning of and the evolution of the band's work, I'm always feeling it's romantic, it's sad, it's sparkling. It makes you feel like you just want to be alive.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, we try.
Yeah, done a great job of it.
I mean, I guess the first couple of albums were slightly different in how we worked, but I mean, we always as a band would try and make the song we were working on sound the best it could, and I guess it changed by about 2005 when John had left and it was just Tracy Ann that was left as the sort of main vocalist and became de facto the main songwriter in the band. Like we would arrange the music together, but it would be her bringing in the basic songs. And I guess from that point, we kind of developed into being the band that would arrange the songs that she brought in the best way that we could to make them sound like Camera Obscura.
Yeah.
So I guess a lot of attention and time was paid to knocking the songs around. I mean, even from the word go, sometimes it's really easy and it happens overnight, and then sometimes you take months to, somewhere there is prospectively a krautrock version of Lloyd that wasn't quite right, and we tried it and it didn't work, and then we went off and then eventually one day after months of trying different things, it just rolled out the way it sounds, and we never looked back. But yeah, it's always about trying to make the songs, because the songs, I mean, Tracy Ann's lyrics are they're wonderful lyrics and they're emotive and they mean something. So the music has to match what the lyrics are about, and it has to be good enough to fit under the lyrics. So that is, I guess, de facto what Camera Obscura as a band do for those songs. We try to do.
There's something in the water over in Scotland. I mean, obviously we could talk about your band, we could talk about Bell and Sebastian, the Orchids, Trash Can Sinatra's as a camera. What the hell is in your water?
Don't know. I mean, like it's a bit like the classic Manchester joke that it's raining all the time, so you can't go out the house. You just have to sit and play a guitar. I mean, music has always been a huge. Glasgow's a music city. I think it's been really interesting. I love Glasgow. I love the bands that have come from Glasgow over the years. Most of them, especially the independent bands, indie bands, alternative bands. I think it changed because up until like the 90s, if you wanted to be successful or be signed to a record label, everybody repeated the same mantra: you have to move to London. That's where music industry is in the UK. You have to be in London. Like, it's an absolute lot, a crock of shit. Because you don't have to be in London. But I guess you have to then, if you're not in London, you have to have an infrastructure around you that allows you to be a musician in Glasgow or in Edinburgh or in Aberdeen or in Dundee or, somewhere, or Manchester. You have to have, and obviously Manchester factory. And I guess Glasgow briefly had Postcard in there, post-punk, late 70s, early 80s. You've got Postcard that kind of comes in and does this kind of sound of Young Scotland thing. But then after that, successful bands were still down to London. As soon as a sniff of success, you disappear. And it's just a bit depressing. It's like, it just feels like, why can't you just stay based here, Oh, I might need to go on shut it. Anyway, when you've got the 90s coming and you have like Bell Sebastian and Jeepster, which although they weren't a Scottish label, they were up here all the time. You've got Delgado starting Chemical Underground. You've got like Mogwai on Chemical, then doing Rock Action. You've got, like Biss being on Chemical Underground and then being on indie labels, and everyone stays. And that's huge, I always think it's really funny. You mentioned the trash cans a minute ago, and it always made me laugh that this classic thing would be you'd have to move to London. So they're all from Irvine. And when they got signed for the first record, they built a record studio in Kilmarnock. So it's like it's not quite the same as going to London. It's just moving up the road. We'll settle in Kilmarnock, shall we? But it's great, and that was really inspiring because they didn't disappear.
Yeah.
So when I know they came over to the States quite a few times and toured a lot. But when I was at uni, they'd be playing at King Tut's, they'd be playing in the Arches, they'd be playing in Glasgow Green in the summer. So you get to see them live all the time. And they were inspiring because they didn't just disappear off to London and chase money that isn't necessarily there in the first place. They stayed, and they were a proper local band that was successful.
And I feel as though another thing that you share in common with a band, particularly TCS, Trash Can Sinatras, they take their sweet ass time.
Yeah, they do.
And when they release something, it is of great quality work.
Yeah.
And you guys take your time too.
Yeah, I guess we've always done. I mean, it was like, I think we used to average about 3 years between records.
Yeah.
When we were active. And part of that was down to people having to have a job, and the first 3 albums were all recorded, certainly when we were all working, whether it was full or part-time. All of us none of us were full-time musicians, so you could only do it so quickly. We were the classic band that went into the studio at the weekends and maybe did a Friday and a Saturday and a Sunday, and we would try and do 2 or 3 tracks, and the first album was done, and the second album was done that way in Glasgow. And it might be like 2 months before you could go back in, maybe 3. We just had to take our time. It was just imposed on us.
Yeah.
And then when we became, I guess we went full time as a band in like 2009 when My Mother and Carey came out, and we were touring all the time. So, but from that point, I mean, even from 2006, we did a lot of touring. So a lot of us had to shift jobs and come back and find new ones after being away for ages. But like signing to 4AD meant there was enough money to pay ourselves to do it properly. And we had to tour a lot to make enough money to live and to promote the records. But that was fantastic. And we were toured for 2 years off that album.
I know.
We were proper roadhogs. And then Carey got ill, and we had to just take time off, and it was never the same, because when she recuperated and we made Desire Lines, we weren't able to tour like we had been before. But then also by that time, we all had families starting to happen then, so you don't want to disappear off for 6 months and not be at home and be absent, because that's not healthy. So I guess it just, there had been a longer break between those 2 records, and then after that, when Carey passed away, we stopped at the time. So and it took a long time to feel the time had come to try something new.
Yeah.
It was nearly 6 years maybe. And we got asked to play 5-6 years, and we got asked to play the Boaty Weekender, which was a really beautiful experience. It was a lot of fun, and rehearsing for that reminded us what we loved about the music we played together and each other, and it felt like such an effortless experience that we didn't want to stop playing when we finished, when the festival was done. Yeah. So we just turned our rehearsals that we'd been doing from trying to remember how to play songs we hadn't played for 6 years to being about writing something new. And at that time, Tracy and just songs just started flowing, and it just seemed really easy. It took us ages, but we stuck with, because we were about to go and record. We'd booked Rockfield Studios in May 2020, and we were all set to just go in and do the first half of the album, and COVID happened and lockdown, and nobody was doing anything.
Yeah.
And it probably took me we must have knocked a year off us because we just couldn't. Like, you couldn't for ages. You couldn't really be in studios and you couldn't be in rehearsal rooms, and it took a while to feel that we could. And then when we went back to record the next lot of stuff, everyone got COVID in the studio, which was tremendous. But yeah, I mean, we take our time. That wandered slightly, but I guess we've always been a bit careful, and we don't rush into stuff.
I like to think that I'm driving. I like to daydream a little. Like to think about people, the faces of the young and the old. I wanna watch the whole story unfold.
A little bit earlier, you had mentioned Carey and kind of her obviously being a huge part of the band. So It's been a while since she passed away.
Yeah. It's like 11 years now, almost.
What'd you say?
It's nearly 11 years.
11 years. So how has her spirit continued to play a role? Where is her energy still partake in the band?
I mean, we talk about her, regularly, especially when we're actively doing band stuff. If you're away on tour or you're in a studio, it's easy to remember all the fun moments and the not so fun moments that she was involved in. She was, within the band, she was the person who helped us create the term hangry, because she used to get really, really, really angry with everybody when she was hungry. So when you're on tour, that happens quite a lot. When you can't get you can't get your dinner because you're hanging about waiting for something to happen. So there was an awful lot of humour still in remembering all the times that she lost her rag with everybody. But she was really inspiring. Obviously all of us would work to arrange songs, but I think especially on Desire Lines, she really, in my modelling career, she'd taken quite a kind of lead on pushing what she thought the band should sound like in terms of, an overall kind of sound. And I guess Desire Lines was really more of the same, and it was such a relief that she had recuperated enough to make another record. And we hoped, we'd hoped at the time that it was a proper second chance and she was clear of cancer, which sadly wasn't to be the case. But we're really glad we got to roll the dice again and do Desire Lines with her. So yeah, I think you never know when you make a record if you're going to make another one, or whether it's going to be that's the last chance to do something the way things go. Who knows if everyone has other things that come up, family, jobs, all that kind of stuff. So you never take it for granted.
But just for the listeners, I'm going to read some albums here. And of course, we're going to talk about Biggest Bluest Hi-Fi here in a moment.
Yeah.
But, so we go to Underachievers, Please Try Harder, Let's Get Out of This Country.
Yeah.
My Modeling Career, Desire Lines, and then 2024's Look in the East, Look in the West. Look to the West.
Look to the East, Look to the West, yeah.
I mean, come on. That's a hell of a run there.
It's all right, yeah. I mean, it's a bit spaced out, but it's good, I mean, I think we all find it quite funny because the first two records, like, it was the best we could do at the time. And I think the first two records sound, I mean, they were recorded in Sava in Glasgow, which was a really good studio. They used to do, an unsigned band rate for people who didn't have a deal. And they included in that people who were on indie labels that had no money. So that included us. So like us and Bell Sebastian and Mogwai and Arab Strap would all record in Sava, which was like a state-of-the-art studio. It was like, maybe not quite the same as Abbey Road, but it was it's up there. It's like a renowned, professional recording studio. And it was in a converted church building. It was lovely. And you tend to be in room 2, which was like a bit more compact and bijou. We did get into room 1 once or twice. It was like just a cavernous room, that was where 80s Fan was recorded. And it was amazing. You'd have your we can talk about that in a minute, to be fair, but it was a total eye-opener. But for us, those first two records still probably sound like really well-produced versions of a band playing in a room together. They're not necessarily produced, but they are engineered very well to sound like a band playing together in a room. And when we met Jari Hapalainen, he absolutely, a variety of means, drove us up the wall, pushed us very hard to be different. And obviously he had an idea in his head of what he thought the record should sound like.
Yeah.
But as players, I mean, he was howling. He thought we were terrible because we used to rehearse all the time, but we didn't play live much. I guess we were not the players we went on to become that later that year, because we went off on the road after making that record, and we learned so much from Yari, and were pushed so hard by him. When we went off on the road, we played for like 2 years, whatever. And when we came back from that, we were different people in terms of musicianship. You know, we played together. We were really tight together. And when we made the next record with him, he was like, I don't have to cover all your mistakes with reverb. And we're like, thanks very much. That's great. But the whole, I mean, the Let's Get This Country album is absolutely a wash. I mean, with your kind of spectresque wall of sound, and he said he had to do that to cover up the fact we were shit. He just pushed everything to the max. I think he was maybe being a wee bit harsh, but he didn't have to do that on My Modelling Career. My Modelling Career was just we were better players, and we knew what we were doing, and we went in and did it better. And he didn't feel the need to hide it underneath the Impressions of Phil Spector, which is pretty good.
Listen to this just for a little bit.
Yep.
I had a group of fourth graders, and I think I've told you this story, but I will refresh in your memory if you don't remember.
Yeah, that's okay.
I had a bunch of 9, 10-year-olds.
Yep.
And that year, I decided my classroom was going to honor this big anniversary of the Titanic, the sinking of the Titanic.
Yeah.
So on the day, we had a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds dress up, suits and ties, dresses.
Yeah.
Boys bought corsages for the young ladies.
Nice.
3 months prior to that, Gavin, I decided to take one of the songs from Let's Get Out of This Country, Come Back, Margaret.
Yep.
And I just thought, what the hell? Who cares? I'm going to teach these kids some ballroom dancing using that song. And
Cool.
On the day of Titanic celebration, that is going to be the end of the day for the parents to watch their kids perform this.
Yeah.
He spent 3 months, 30 minutes a day working on that dance. Fast forwarded to Titanic Day.
Yeah.
We're in the school gym. The parents are sitting there. We have 10 minutes left. And I said, here's the encore. All the boys and girls are lined up. I tell a parent to hit the music, and they do this amazing ballroom dance style of that song. You should have seen the applause or heard it. You should have seen the parents' faces. It is to this day one of the most proudest moments of my teaching career.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was, and I'm not here to pump up me. I'm here to pump up you. But with that song, and I know it means so much to people, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little bit of backstory to it, what you remember and playing it live.
We always, I mean, it's weird because it was never a single, but it's always been one of the most popular tunes off that album. And it definitely became a live favourite. Maybe we sort of extended it when we put it live. I mean, Tracy had written it about her gran, so it meant an awful lot to her. It was quite an emotional song for her to write and play, and we wanted to make it sound old-fashioned, the sort of rock and roll kind of keyboard licks and syncopated bits to make it sound like an old rock and roll or old 50s tune, because that would have been what she listened to when she was young. It's always amazing watching people react positively when you play live. It's a great feeling, but it's kind of weird for us, I guess. When Let's Get Out of This Country came out, like the songs on that album have never really slipped out the live set. You know, there's like maybe five or six of them that we still play. Like, you know, it's the album that's probably most represented when we play live still to this day, just because it was the album that most people discovered us on. You know, I mean, sometimes like people went back and maybe found Let's Get This Country and Underachievers, but they hadn't heard of us before that album. And sort of 2006, I guess, was a big year for us, really. It kind of changed everything in terms of how we were perceived as a band and what we felt we could do, what we could achieve. But I mean, it is quite funny. Once you release it, you don't know where songs go to all sorts of places, and I mean, I think it's about 10 years ago now, former UK Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher died. And like the one show, which is like a magazine program that would be on at like 7 o'clock on BBC One, the main public service broadcaster, used Come Back Margaret to soundtrack the story about Margaret Thatcher having died. The irony being that Margaret Thatcher was an extremely unpopular politician with a lot of the country, especially in Scotland, where she was absolutely, I think it's fair to say, she was fairly universally despised. So the fact that we Come Back Margaret soundtracks Margaret Thatcher's funeral story on the BBC was a very strange experience to see.
Yeah.
Because we didn't really want her to come back, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Come back, Margaret. He wants to adore you. Come back, Margaret. I'd like to explore you. Can't you see the tears in my eyes? With the love for him like the sky. I like the free days with no expectations. I like it my way with no limitations. Still you see there are tears in my eyes. With the love for him like a spine. Darling, you will always be around. Whether my lips up or if it's down. In dreams I've tried to take you far away. Though you never stay. No, you never stay. No, you never stay.
Well, we could talk about that album forever and ever, but that's
Yeah.
why we're here. We're here to talk about a reissue, a
Yeah.
reconnecting to an album that I know is still very near and dear to many people's hearts. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's
Sometimes
talk.
we
this-
find that quite bewildering, but we're really happy that people do love it, you know?
They really do.
So it's 25 years. 25 years ago, when it comes to November, that was originally released. Yeah, I mean, it changed our lives in terms of, you know, like we'd all dreamed about being musicians. We'd all been in bands, but to actually make an album, not just putting a single is one thing, but to actually have someone trust you enough to make a proper record in a real recording studio was something entirely new for us. And that's the point where by that point the band lineup had pretty much clicked into place. Carey came along just after that album. It was Lindsay Boyd who was one of the people who ran Anmore Sound Records that played keyboards in the first. But ostensibly it was Tracy Ann and myself and John and Kenny and Lee all clicked together as the proper lineup of the band as it went on to be.
Yeah.
And Carey joined us about a year or so later. But yeah, it was a big time, you know. We spent most of 2000 recording it, and we'd maybe spent most of 1999 into 2000 rehearsing the songs and trying to arrange them properly. We were based out in a rehearsal room in the northwest of the city, which is now been like refurbished, and it's now it's Maryhill Borough Halls, and it's beautiful. It used to be a police station, and when we found it, I think it had been used by Wet 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 in the 80s as their management office, and it was honking. It was damp, that leaked, there was mold everywhere, and we shared it with two other bands, a band called the Starlets who were kind of friends and contemporaries of ours, and a band called Palomino who were fairly poor, quite a little bit pretentious. And between us, there was 3 bands, and maybe make it a couple of nights a week each where we would go in and you'd book the time you wanted to rehearse. And by the time you'd scraped the mold off the back of your amp and you know, and what, you know, it wasn't glamorous, but we spent a year there getting Biggest Bluest Hi-Fi ready. And then there was the juxtaposition of going from this dingy, absolute, it was awful rehearsal space to going into Savas Studios, which is this glamorous jewel in the crown of recording studios, was quite a jump. So we got to experience both sides, the squalor of a dingy, damp rehearsal space, and then the glamour of a really high-end recording studio. And between the two of them, we found ourselves and made a record.
That's funny, because I was going to ask you to tell us a standout story in the creation of this album. Is that the one you're going to choose?
I mean, I think the standout thing for us is probably, like, we'd been going for a while and we didn't really know. We'd put out 2 7-inches. The second one had come with a CD as well, and that felt quite spectacular. A Japanese label had put out a compilation that had the 5 tracks off those 2 singles on it, and it had 3 extra tracks we'd recorded, one of which was 80s Fan, but it was a very different arrangement. It was just very acoustic.
You know it really won't surprise me if you're a wreck by the age of 14. The way you look is fine. So often color coordinated. Your sister, she's an 80s fan. That's alright, have I told you so is mine. You say your life will be the death of you. Tell me, do you wash your hair in honeydew?
An acoustic folky pop song. And Stuart Murdoch from Bell Sebastian had come, like, we'd met them at an open mic day. We've met Stuart and Richard from Bell Sebastian at an open mic on a Saturday afternoon in the Halt Bar on Woodlands Road, which used to have open mic afternoons every weekend. And lots of people in the Glasgow bands would go and have a few drinks and get up and play a tune or two. And one day we all turned up. It was just me, Tracy-Ann, John and David Scurving, who played guitar with us at the time. We had no drummer because we didn't have one. We couldn't find anybody who was willing to drum for us. So the 4 of us get up on stage. We play 2 songs. Stuart and Richard are in the crowd. Richard comes over after having had a couple of refreshments himself and says, like, if you need a drummer, just give us a shout. So he ended up drumming for Camera Obscura for 2 years. And he kind of left just before we started recording the album because he was already in Bell Sebastian. He was in Snow Patrol at the time. He was in, I think he was in a band called the Ducks. He also DJ'd. He had no time to be playing drums for us as well. So we got quite friendly with Stuart and Richard and the rest of the Bells. They were both working as caretakers in a church in the West End of Glasgow, and they lived in a flat above the church hall. So they used to rehearse in the church hall, and then we got to start rehearsing in the church hall, which was a lot nicer than the squalor of where we'd been before. And after a while, Stuart was just like, I've had an idea for 80s Fan. I think we could do an arrangement of it, which, you know, is like Total Phil Spector, and like, will you like me? Can I take you into the studio and we'll do it? At which point, like, we've only ever recorded on 4 tracks and digital multi-tracks in people's houses. So, like, I think Park and Ride, the single, was recorded in my parents' cellar on a 4-track cassette player.
Okay.
There's no drums, it's just percussion and Tracy-Ann and John and myself, I think, at the time. And maybe David plays guitar on it as well. And the second 3-track EP was recorded digitally in one of the record labels' kitchens when Brian Toland, who used to be in Delamitri before, like, on their first album, kind of engineered the recording for us, which is quite odd, really. But we'd never been in a recording studio. Everything we did was just in rehearsal rooms and in houses.
Yeah.
So for Stuart to go, we're going to go into Savah, is that all right? And we were like, oh yeah, fine. You know, and we asked the record label that had put our 2 7-inches out, and they're like, yeah, we'll pay for it, it's fine. And we're like, really? It's like, yeah, you should make a record. And we're like, can we? Is that all right? And they're like, yeah, okay. So Stuart took us into Savah Studios, and obviously we rehearsed what he what he wanted it to sound like. So he's like, I'm going to put strings over it. It's going to be like a big wall of sounds. We're going to have loads of guitars. It's going to be like Phil Spector. And we're just like, okay, well, tell us what to do. So we changed how we were playing it from being this kind of folky Scottish pop tune to being a bit of a Motown, stomper. And we went in one Saturday. I mean, and then that was it. We spent the day recording. And at the end of the day, like, the string players came in and they recorded their part, and like, you're listening to what sounds like a record. And we'd never had that experience before. Because even when you're recording on, I mean, the stuff we did on 4-tracks and multi-tracks, it just sounds like, it's basic recordings of us playing. But this is this has got overdubs of an orchestral overdubs, and it was just a huge difference. And it's recorded in a massive, like, Studio One in Savannah. It's like a big, massive Abbey Road sized recording studio. And when you do that, it's very difficult to look back and go, do you know what? I could just happily record this in a 4-track in a cellar.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
But what does reissue?
Yeah.
In terms of going back and reconnecting to some of these songs, were they cleaned up? Were they remastered in a way?
It has been remastered. It's not been remixed, but it's been remastered. It's interesting because obviously it has existed on CD since it came out,
right.
But there was only ever 1,000 copies of the vinyl pressed in the UK in 2001, and it sold out like almost immediately. So you've not been able to buy it on record since its release, really. So it was remastered for vinyl and then remastered. It's not coming out on CD just now. It may be still yet come back out on our remastered CD version. We need to speak to Merge, but certainly it's available. It will be available digitally again in the vinyl. So that's a really nice thing. We decided to put Shine Like a New Pin and Let's Go Bowling on the record this time because they were added to the album in retrospect in Europe and then in North America.
Yeah.
And then every version that's come out since has had them on it. So it felt it would be a disservice to not put them on the vinyl now. So they're both on the record as well. Because I guess for most people outside of the UK, the record is like those 2 tracks are part of it.
Yeah. Well, you heard me talk about at the beginning of this podcast my love for Shine Like a New Pin. Are there any particular tracks that you really enjoy playing live? Is it anti-Western?
Well, I mean, it's kind of we haven't really played anything from that album live for I mean, since it's like 20 years, really. We play 80s Fan sometimes.
Yeah.
And we would occasionally play
Swimming Pool?
No, we hate a swimming pool. I don't know why,
Okay.
but we all had a really violent hatred towards it after because we had to play it for ages, and people loved it, and we couldn't quite understand why it was everyone's favorite song. Play Swimming Pool, and we're like, oh man, no. Pen and Notebook, I think, sounds beautiful on that record. I mean, we used to play that live for a little bit.
Nice.
And we played anti-Western and we played other stuff for a few years, but then when John left, he'd been the main or the dual vocalist, so it didn't feel right to play it with he wasn't there anymore. So we just stopped, and so apart from a very occasional appearance from 80s Fan, that was probably the only song that got represented from that record. Occasionally we would play, like Shine Like a New Pin seemed to be absolutely adored in Spain, so when we went to Spain we would play that. But I was going to say, we bumped into the guitarist from Camper Van Beethoven when we were in Portland in 2024. And we got to, he came to see us in the dressing room afterwards with Tucker Martin, the producer. And we were chatting away to him, and it was like, we couldn't really help but say, because he was talking about how much he liked us, and we were like, Shine Like a New Pin's just ripped off Take This Guy in His Bowl, and it's just like, it's our total nod to you. And he was like, oh, I didn't know. And we were like, you can't miss it. It's like, it's really obvious. But for years, it's a wee bit like, I've always loved playing that. It's a great tune. It's just a total indie pop smasher. But it is basically just our take on Take This Guy in His Bowl.
The outro to that song, so good, so good. Let me read you another quote here. Okay. Katie Tunstall says this: being creative is about trusting your instincts and not being afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess you have to do what feels right, if it doesn't feel right to you, it's pointless doing it. You're at it. You're not. You need to be honest yourself. I'd like to think when we do that, we're not lining up to fail. But there's no point in doing it if you're not doing it with honesty.
Right. And that's what I've always admired about you and your band is that you just keep soldiering on. And like you said earlier, for the amount of touring that you did for specific albums, I'm sure the wind out of your sail a little bit.
That's possibly just into autism and people not knowing what else to do,
Right.
That's a joke, but it's also true. No, I mean, I think we love playing together. We've been doing it for, up to 30 years in various ways. That's a huge deal, I have been in Camera Obscura for more of my adult life than I haven't. And it probably goes the same for all of us. And it means so much to us all in different ways, but the music we make and the vehicle that it is for us all and our friendships and the fact that we care about each other is a massive it's a massive thing. It holds, we've all shared experiences as part of this band that we'll all hold dear for the rest of our lives. We've all done stuff, that's just been incredibly special or emotional or great artistic success that we've had when the band together. That's a success we share. It's really important to us. Most people aren't lucky enough to get to know what it's like to play to like 8,000 people in a pier in New York and like the New York skyline is the backdrop to what you can see and behind all these people that are watching it and having a rare tear and enjoying themselves. That's the sort of thing that it's a pretty amazing experience, like getting to play Glasgow Barlands, and have it sold out and have everybody going absolutely crazy when you walk on. That's something we would never have assumed we would ever see. And we've been lucky enough to play there 3 times now. Hopefully we'll get to play there again at some point. But it's just really positive.
Yeah.
You can't knock it.
No, and when you go to a Camera Obscura concert, there's so much appreciation and love for all of you on what you're doing on stage. It's very palpable. And people leave with big smiles on their faces.
Yeah, I think one of the really important things that we realized when we came back and put the new record out and toured in 2024, like fairly heftily for the first time in a long time, regardless of whether it was a Europe or the UK or in North America, we would look out at the crowd and there's kids, there's like teenagers there getting into what we're doing, and we're thinking, you weren't born when we first started. And then you realise they're with their mum and they're with their dad. And they have grown up listening to us because their parents listened to us when they were younger. I mean, we keep hearing stories about current young people who come to see us who were conceived after Camera Obscura shows. But there we go. It's nice to help people. And the stories that we would heard, over the last couple of years, an illustration of why it's a privilege to do what we do, because not only have we had the kind of experience of being able to play concerts that are sold out and have people enjoying themselves and sing the songs back at you and be really loud in their appreciation for what we have done. Those people who have gone off and they've bought the record and they listen to the record, it's their soundtrack. Those records have been the soundtrack to their lives in the same way that New Order soundtrack my days at university and beyond and inspired me to want to do this. And when folk come back to see us now, like, 25 years after the first album came out, and they've brought their kids with them, and the kids are singing along because they love the songs because they've grown up with them. And you get to feel how special it is that you have contributed to the soundtrack to someone's life and the emotional investment that they have to us as a band and our songs as music because of the effect it has on their life. And that's just it. That is not what I signed up for. Didn't expect that to happen. We went to chat to people it was in Austin after the show we played there, and a girl came up to me and was like, "Is it okay to say hello?" I was like, "Of course." And she was just like, "I learned to play bass listening to you." And I was like, shut up. And she was like, "You made me want to learn to play bass guitar." And I was like, I mean, that's such an honor. If anyone who has been inspired by any of us to go and learn an instrument or like want to give it a go, you know, being a musician or just be creative, that is an honour. And you know, you can't help but take that as a massive, you know, compliment. You know, that's really nice.
It is an honor, but I also think it's another way of saying to you and Tracy Ann and everybody else in the band, your band to me has always been humble, full of gratitude, nothing braggadocious. You don't have airs about yourself, and you could.
I think one of the good things about coming from Glasgow is you don't get to do that without someone telling you to shut up and wind your neck in, which is a positive thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody likes a smart arse. Sit down, you just shut it. Take your 6 records and be quiet.
Is there anything else you want to say about this album that we haven't discussed?
I mean, it's where it all started. We find it quite bizarre that for some people it's their favourite Camera Obscura album, but it is for lots of people. And I guess especially the civilians who turned up right at the word go and used to come and see us when we didn't play very often, but when we turned up in London and they came out to see us, and when they came to see us in Glasgow and they were in it from the word go and they bought that record, and it still means so much to them.
Yeah,
they got ahead of the curve, and I think it's hopefully in its reissue other people get the same experience with it. Maybe they might not have heard it before, or it's just a chance to have it in vinyl for the first time and listen to the warm tones of the analog recordings. I always think it's really weird because when we first did that, first time in a studio, the technology was still the same as it had been for years. You've got your 2-inch tape and you've got your big tape machine and you know, and then you've got your massive analog desk, which is now kind of, you know, fast becoming digital. But it's all still recorded to tape, and techniques that have been done since the 60s are still being done in, you know, like double-tracked vocals, which stops, you know, with the invention of digital editing and vocoders, and people don't do, you know, they'll stop doing double-track vocals because you didn't need to. You didn't need to do that technique to make them sound better because you could just digitally edit them. So we kind of came in at a point where that was still how you made records. That's how you did vocal takes, and, you know, and that very soon changed. So by the time you get to, you know, Let's Get This Country, it's, I mean, to be fair, a lot of the vocals are just kept alive on that record, but there's no, you know, tape double tracking. It's just all, it's different, you know, and that's a sound that disappears from recordings because people don't use studios in that way anymore.
Let's go deeper into your life, if you don't mind me asking you this question. What critical moment in your life forced you to rethink who you are, either as an artist or just a person?
I mean, the most obvious thing, the biggest negative thing that happened to me as an adult was losing Carey. In terms of us as a band, we were professional musicians for the first time. It took a long time to get there. We made records, we toured. One of us got ill. We all took time off, let her get treatment and recover. We went back and made another record. We did a bit of touring. But when Carey passed away, nobody spoke about it because we're west of Scotland, all of us who, you know, we've all got, you know, there's a lot of, you know, neurodiversity and being from Glasgow. So we didn't really talk about it. We all just assumed that the time had come to stop because such a fundamental change had happened and nobody felt like it was right to keep going. But we didn't talk about it. We just paused, and it remained so for a very long time. And then at that point, you're faced with the reality that you're not a musician anymore because our band finished, and nobody really. It's not, you can't go down the job centre and say, "Oh, what are you good at?" And it's like, "Well, we'll play bass in a band." Any band's looking for a bass player? No, no, there's not. So at which point, you know, you have to go off your arse and get a job. You know, most people aren't fortunate enough to be able to just keep making music without most musicians now will have a job anyway because it's just not the glory days of making lots of money from a music career are certainly long, you know, but it's not anything we've ever experienced, and that's fine because that's not why we make music. But the reality is, you have a family, you have a house, you have to have a job, you need to pay the bills. So trying to find a way to move forward was terrifying.
Yeah.
I'd spent, you know, and by that point, you know, it's like over 15 years working in record shops to be in Camera Obscura. You know, it was like you'd have part-time jobs or jobs that you went to for a couple of years and then you'd leave and you'd go off on tour. And like my life was the band. And I got married and I had kids, but the band still exists as my creative, for all of us, it's our main creative opportunity.
Yeah.
It's how we make music it's how we make music that people all want to listen to. We can all go off and do our own thing, but we know that together we do something that individually, like maybe it's not the same, and that's fine. But it's just like you don't know what to do, like, you know. And I was really lucky. It took a while, and I managed to bumble my way into. I discovered a charity in Glasgow. I went to volunteer. I'm wearing the t-shirt just now. I'm still there. I'm the manager of it, but it allowed me. I got a job with them, and we kind of like ended up running shops for them, and that was a really positive thing because I had years of experience in record shops and the like, and I put that to good use running their charity shop and try to make the charity money and be self-sustaining. And I ended up becoming the manager of that, which then led to me doing things I would never have done before. I have to stand on stage. Like, I stand on stage and play guitar, but that's cheating because I'm in a band and we're all together. And it's a band as a gang mentality. We all go up and we know what we're doing and we play. I've had to stand up and do speeches, you know, at conferences I'm terrified of public speaking. It's not my cup of tea at all. Hate it.
Really?
Mortified. Absolutely terrified of doing it. And I've had to do it. I've been on the telly chatting on the news. You did a news report talking about the work of the charity. It's just really odd, but like I would never, you know, I would never have imagined myself in that position. I mean, it was a really hard place to come from. And I'm really lucky that I found somewhere that I felt at home that inspired me to be able to do what I need to do to manage a charity. The difference it makes is a really positive difference to people, and that makes me feel that I'm doing something good in Glasgow and helping support folks who need a wee bit of extra help. But that made me, you know, the thought of having to stand up and talk to folk. I can chat away to people. I like people. I'm a bit scared of them. Replace a bit with massively, but I've never been the most confident person. And I guess, you know, partly through being in a band, that was it. I mean, like having to find a job that could be not a career in the sense of, you know, I want to advance my career, but just like something that I can, it's a vacation. You know, for me, running a charity and having worked for them for years, like being in a band, it was a vacation. It was something I was good at, or I found myself to be good at, but that was quite scary. Because if all you've done is play bass guitar for 15 years and then sell people Pastels records, but it's just a very worthwhile thing to do. It's not, you know, but when those avenues stop and you suddenly have to find yourself a real life job, otherwise, you know, you're in proper dire straits, then not the band. It's quite scary. So that's been a wee bit serious. Apologies, but that is the most. Yeah, that period of like, it was like it was months or a year. It was like a long, slow, dark journey to try and find a new way to live, to be a different person. Because I couldn't be Camera Obscura's Gavin Dunbar if Camera Obscura aren't existing.
Right.
So I needed to find a valid way. I couldn't just see myself, you know. I was DJing for a while, just trying to not get a real job and remain in this world of just, I'm a musician. But, you know, it's not everybody can do that, you know?
Right.
So now with the band doing things occasionally, it's nice to be able to have a life where I am charity, you know, manager Gavin the Bar during the day, and I get to go off and be Camera Obscura's Gavin the Bar a few times a year.
You've emerged and you have succeeded through those struggles, through those interior conflicts. And yeah, you have carved out a really nice life for yourself. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, like, music has always been it's been my main focus of interest. It's what excites me. It's what, you know, I can't paint. I'm not a cartoonist. I can't write a novel. I can play a bass guitar with some level of confidence and an ability to make it sound like it's doing something a bit special sometimes. So I'll take that as a win, and the fact that people appreciate what we do as a band and what we do as players is really a massive thing.
Yeah. All right, let's wrap up this conversation. I'd asked you to bring a concert stub to the conversation or a piece of memorabilia.
Yes.
Which one would you like to talk about?
We'll go for concert stub. I got to see New Order. I had never seen them at the time they originally existed because I was too young. And I remember when I was in 6th year at school, sort of final year at school, they played at the SEC in Glasgow, which was still comparatively new at that point. And I didn't go because I hadn't really found them properly at that point. And it was when Technique had just come out. And I was just kind of on the cusp of really getting into them. But I was also quite nervous. I didn't really go to concerts that much. So I didn't go. And then apparently it was terrible. It was it's like renowned for being one of the worst concerts they ever played that night. So I'm quite glad I didn't go. I think the sound was appalling. I mean, the SEC was a bit of a massive shed. It wasn't great for sound. And I think they had a bad night and they were all falling out and sounding, it was just echoing everywhere. But I got to see them when they reformed 2001 at the Barrowlands. And having never seen them, I was just like, I was absolutely fleeing at the back. I don't like crowds. I was standing at the back of the road, just watching this concert unfold. And that obviously, when they came back then, they were playing some Joy Division stuff as well.
Yes.
So it was proper, like hearing your silent face live in the Barrowland was just like, it was very special. I would love to have seen them in the 80s when they were properly, first time around, but I didn't. I did get to see them in 2001. I have seen them since, but that was not the same. I saw them at the Academy in Glasgow, but it was after Hookie had left, and I felt like I'd been mugged, a wee bit, because I can appreciate it when you're in a band and it's a bit like a family. There are times when people fall out, and I think it's a real shame, because I think one of the strengths of New Order, I had them, I might be Rob Gretton, the manager, that said, you don't step on each other's toes in public. So no matter what's going on, no matter how annoyed they might be at each other, there is a grace. And that just disappeared after 2007. They all squabbling on the internet and Twitter, and you're just like, don't do this. This is not how you behave. I want to still listen to their records and love them. Yeah, it's a real shame. I wish they could find a way to not hate each other, because it would be nice. But there you go. Who knows? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
If they can stand being in the same room with each other, let's see if they'll turn up. I know Hickey's going. I don't know if the other three will.
Talking Heads were able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a one short night. Go on, don't fight with each other, have a nice night, and then go back to the way you were. Who knows?
Put aside your money differences.
Yeah, that's it. We've never made any money, so that's never affected us. It's fine.
All right, tell us anything coming down the line for your Camera Obscura.
Just we're off to visit yourselves in North America in about a month and a bit. So we're over. It's just the last week of May and the first week of June, doing shows in Woodstock and Jersey City, and a nice festival in Nevada. And then we're over to the West Coast to do a couple of early shows in Pioneer Town, and then down to Mexico City, and then up the road. And we don't have anything else planned just now after that. I'm sure at some point we will do something else. But at the moment, that's the last for just now. I think other stuff will happen. People have got other things to do, I think. So people will go off and do things like, and then come back, and when the time is right, we'll come back and do something else or play a show for people or whatever.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, for people who are listening to this podcast, if you have not seen Camera Obscura live, please go see them. I promise you, you will leave with that big ear-to-ear smile I was talking about.
We do hope so.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful live band. And you guys really, all of you take those songs from these albums and elevate them in a way with no pretentiousness. And there's some great surprises throughout the sets. It really is a wonderful time, worth every penny. Where can people check out your music?
I guess your local record store might be able to get the vinyl in, and you can certainly find our CDs as well. I mean, we're up on all the digital platforms also. If you If you just don't stream it, that's rubbish. Nobody can make records if you just stream it all the time. Buy a record, buy a CD.
Yeah.
Buy a concert ticket. That's the way to go. Keep bands being able to make music.
Yeah, and grab the good merch. Okay, I'm going to end it with a quote by Rick Rubin, legendary producer.
Indeed.
Yeah, and he's worked with so many bands, particularly Beastie Boys.
Beastie Boys, absolutely.
Yeah.
Johnny Cash.
Yeah.
I wished that somebody would get Rick Rubin to just kidnap Rod Stewart and take him off and make a good record, like one that's produced probably an aging Rod Stewart could still make a great record if he had someone, right, going to grab him, take him, don't let him just overproduce it, just make a good record. It'd be wonderful.
He did that with Neil Diamond.
He did.
That's a great freaking album. Okay, that's for another time. All right, so this is what Rick Rubin says. He says this: all that matters is that you are making something you love to the best of your ability, here and now. Thank you to Gavin Dunbar, bassist extraordinaire from the band Camera Obscura. Thank you so much for all these wonderful insights into your life, into the band, and really appreciate that you're taking this time. And everyone go check out the music. You can find it. And like you said, grab the albums, physical copy, go see the shows, all that good stuff. My name is W, host of this podcast feature known as Surprise Cast. And remember this, everyone. Great music is all around us.
That love.
All you have to do is keep your ears open.